affirming, and embracing people and their stories. We value living committed, caring, helpful, and open-minded lives. We come together with specific intentions. First, we come to connect with one another, with ourselves, and with those around us. We welcome those of you who are new and invite you into our circles of connection. Second, we come to learn. We bring our beginner's mind into this moment and acknowledge our humility, honesty, and teachability. Finally, we come to be. Be together, be human, be ourselves. Be kind and be caring, and to be open to all that awaits us in this place today. Amen.
Good morning, Ethos. I was introduced as a musician, but I would argue that we're all the musicians this morning. So I really, really hope that you'll sing along if you know this next one. As Tony talked to me about this idea of new beginnings and the story of Jonah, this song, ironically, was in my head. And I know it doesn't talk about new beginnings, but if I may for a second share, to know that I am loved, not only by God, but by people that I associate with and that I'm here, it gives me permission to grow. It gives me permission to become. And I think so many times it's our inclination, either spiritually or religiously, to operate out of fear. And I don't know about you, but when I make a decision out of fear, it's inauthentic. It doesn't come across as real. And it leaves a disconnection between who I want to be, who I am, and the person that I'm trying to interact with. So to know that we are in a place that we are loved, and I don't know about you, but the way that I see God, God is love. God is that thing that gives me permission to grow and become. So this one's called Reckless Love. Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind. God, oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God, yeah. You guys sound great this morning. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. You ready, Ethos? And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Again. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. Thank you, God.
Did you enjoy that as much as I did? Yeesh. Brett, every time. You know what's funny is when I see other people do music, do you guys remember when I used to do music all the time in Boulder? Doing the speaking and the singing is just, it's whoa. But then when you hear someone really good, what was that? This brother can sing. Before we start, it's raining, so who knows who will show up today. It's kind of funny. When it rains here in California, it's like Armageddon. People are like, we're not going out in that. Like, it's sprinkling, maybe sprinkling a little bit, but who knows? That's right, and we're speaking on Jonah, so it's fantastic. Either way, and that's my baby. But today, the people we have in this room, we're here, and I'm excited about this group because we have a lot of interesting stuff I want to share today. But I want to start by saying this. I get all the time, people ask me, what does ethos mean? Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, what does ethos mean? And also, what is ethos? What do you believe? What does your community believe? That's what they ask me all the time. And this week, someone from Wales, who may be watching today, so hello, they asked, what do you guys believe? Like, what do you do? And I thought to myself, I think the best answer would be this. You should ask them. You should ask them. You should come here and ask them what they believe. Because what I love about this is we are a community of people who don't always agree on everything. And we have a safe enough space where if you say, I don't know about this, you can voice the doubt, and no one's here judging you, but we can actually have a conversation about it. And that's something that I've found really fulfilling, and I find over and over as I talk to more and more people online, everywhere, it's what they're looking for too, a safe space to talk, to have conversation, to lean in, even when there's disagreement. And so that's what we do, that's what we are, and I'm so thankful for it. Let me start with this. We talked about this last week. Facts don't always change minds, do they? I can give you tons of facts. I can give you all the reasons why this and this and this and this. But often it doesn't always change the mind. Why? Anyone with me? Why is that? Why does that happen?
Because people have their own perspective.
Okay, I have my own perspective. I grew up with this thing.
Yeah.
I have spent time with it, and I don't know if I want to give it up, right?
We also talked about culture.
Culture.
This has a lot to do with culture.
Okay, good.
What are your culture?
This was the culture. This was the perspective. This is the thing.
And it's a lot of times about delivery. So if facts are delivered in a condescending
Okay, good. Yeah.
way, then I don't want. I'm going to deny
Yeah,
it.
some people will bury you with facts, and almost like in a way that is, it's like too much. Water's good until you're drowning, right?
Yeah.
And so facts, same way. Yeah, facts don't always change minds. And it's interesting. Again, I love this John Adams quote. Facts are stubborn things, but our minds are even more stubborn. Doubt isn't always resolved in the face of facts, for even the most enlightened among us, however credible and convincing those facts might be. As a result of the well-documented confirmation bias, we tend to undervalue evidence that contradicts our beliefs and overvalue evidence that confirms them. And again, over and over again, I see this on Facebook. Your Facebook feed will give you whatever bias you have. The majority of the time. The people who are saying counter things to what you said, they have really interesting algorithms that are going to push those out and give you the echo chamber that you want. It's interesting. But it doesn't grow you. It doesn't help you move. And so here, we say this to someone. If we are talking about something that's pushing you, that's stretching you, and you're thinking, no, whatever, and you're fighting back, one thing you can do for sure is say this. I knew then what I knew then. I know now what I know now. What I know later, I will know later. Give yourself an out. You are a dynamic, growing person. You are getting newer information every day wherever you go. Know this, if I don't hold it so tightly, whatever the thing is, I'm allowed to grow and change and morph into something bigger. But if I say, no, this is who I am, this is who I will always be, well, holy cow. That sounds like an incredibly boring life. So give yourself an out. Next, your beliefs are not your identity. When your beliefs are entwined with your identity, changing your mind means changing your identity. And that's a terrifying thing. But when I can say, those are my beliefs, they're dynamic. Sometimes they change, sometimes they grow. It's not who I am. Then I'm open to have conversation with people. Even just at the least, just a conversation. And them having a different belief doesn't threaten me. How does that land for all of you?
So if you identify with those beliefs, then it becomes your identity in a sense. And that last line, that's a really hard sell. Yeah, it is. I mean, yes, that does evolve and change through time, I guess, but you identify those by the beliefs. That's why they're your beliefs.
And you can choose not to allow it to be who you are. I can say, I identify with certain perspectives right now, but those perspectives are not me. That's when at least there's some openness to growing and changing. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Yes, please.
I've been in recovery groups where there's addicts.
Mm.
And one of the things in the 12 steps that they're told to say is, I am an alcoholic. And I've always hated that because it's not it's not their identity, it's something they struggle with. So I'd rather hear them say, I struggle with alcoholism, not I am an alcoholic. It's like you continue to affirm that in yourself, and that becomes who you are, instead of on the outside of you something you're struggling with.
Yeah, what if we affirmed rather than the thing that we believe or the thing that we are trying to overcome? What if we just affirmed that we are dynamic, changing, growing people with good and bad constantly on our shoulders, choosing one or the other? Yeah, that might shift things for us. Good point. Lastly, get out of your echo chamber. Echo chambers do not cause growth. And again, anywhere you go, you can find an echo chamber, whether it's within the walls of a church or in a conversation with people online. Wherever you go, you're always going to see an echo chamber. And so how do you get out of those echo chambers? How do you get into real-life dynamic conversation? So I say all of that to say, once again, that's who we are. That's the kind of thing that we do here. And I'm so excited to have the conversation with you guys today. Cool. All right, let me begin. We're going to talk about, we talked about the flood. We talked about the Exodus. Today we're going to talk about Jonah and the whale. How many of you remember this story? Jonah and the whale. All right, growing up, what kind of questions would surface for you when you would hear the story of Jonah and the whale? By the way, has everyone heard the story of Jonah and the whale? Okay. Yeah, good. So what questions would come up for you? Or like, what would you think when you heard this story, Jonah and the whale?
Doesn't matter what you want or what you believe. Your life is preordained, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Okay, so we came from like a Calvinist kind of perspective of, yeah, everything's preordained. The path is already set for you. You better start walking it. Any choice you have is not really a choice. It's kind of a choice, but you're ultimately going to choose that thing anyways. So Jonah's going to get swallowed by the whale. It's going to happen. No matter what, the punishment wasn't really going to take place, but he had to just show up anyways. Like okay, good, interesting. Good perspective. Anyone else?
How stinky it would be in there. Like, how's he going to breathe in there? How gross is that? He's
Yeah.
inside, it's nasty in there.
Anyone else there too? Like as a kid, you're like, man, how did fish smell being inside of a whale, or it's called a fish back then? What? Like how do you survive in that? Like, yeah. So Pinocchio obviously did. So somehow I can. Yeah. You good. You begin to make connections to Pinocchio, but then you remember that's a story. So then what do you do with that? And yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone ever get afraid of whales and stuff because of the story? Okay. I quit surfing because of those whales. Good. So today we'll talk about that. But again, I want to start by pointing out this. Narratives, stories, they were all meant to share a deeper meaning. So we will often get caught up. Did it really or not? And this and that. Stories are there to share something really complex in a simple way. That's what a story does. And again, storytelling is the most powerful way to put ideas into the world. And again, if you're going to make a story, you got to make it epic if you're Joseph Campbell, right? Yeah, make the story epic, make it big. Always use metaphor. Metaphor speaks so much more than just simply saying fact, 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 fact. And when you share the story, it opens up and it allows other people to share the story. Sweet. All right, so we're going to talk about hungry whales and throwing stuff away. So, story of Jonah, one of my favorites in the Bible, and it was one that I didn't fully understand until I started to look into Judaism. I was told in the Christian story that Jonah was a failure. How many of you were told that? Like, bad prophet, Jonah. Good prophet, Moses, kind of. Elijah, Elisha. Good prophets, Jonah, bad prophet. Anyone with me? Okay, good. If you were a Jewish person, he was a great prophet. This story is actually a heroic story from the Jewish perspective. Anyone interested now? Yeah. Jonah is actually a really heroic story. So I wanted to share with you, before I even get into the story, there are other whale stories. I just did a little bit of digging around. There's a lot of whale stories out there. Here's a couple that I thought you might find interesting. James Bartley, in the 1700s, yeah, of course, he claimed his boat, he basically was on this large fishing vessel. Why couldn't I say fishing vessel? And he got off the boat because they saw a big tail flip up, and he thought, oh, cool, I want to get closer. So first off, not so smart, James. James decides to paddle out in a small boat to get as close to the large fin as possible. He gets out there, and he claims that as he's out there, the whale goes under, and it comes back up, and it swallowed James and his vessel whole. And he basically claimed that he was in the insides of the whale. He was kind of swallowed and went through some of the whale's innards. Again, if a whale was simply here's my throat, and there's my stomach, got it. But we know from anatomy he would have had to go through some other things as well. Either way, they didn't quite understand. Most of the populace didn't understand that at that point. Swallowed by the whale, went finally into the stomach, and in the stomach he loses consciousness. And finally, the crew, after seeing their hero taken by the whale, they attack the whale, they subdue the whale. How they subdue a whale in that time period in the 1700s, I don't know, but they subdued it. They kill it, they take it onto shore, they cut it open, and there inside they find James. Still alive, barely hanging on. They took him to the hospital, and there he was revived. How many of you have ever heard this story, by the way? Nobody? It was like 1760 something. I can give you that info in a little bit. This story circulated for quite a while. It's actually a very popular story. Edward B. Davis heard the story, and an investigative reporter, he said, I want to know if this really happened, because the story seems to have taken on a shape and a life of its own. And so Edward B. Davis, he said, I want to figure out what really happened with this. Like, was the dude really swallowed by a whale? Was this whole boat taken? How did they subdue it? So he started looking into this story. He asked a lot of questions. He found various people that were connected to the story. Interested? So here's what he pointed out. Looked over scores of newspapers, vessel charts, logs, all of that, and he found that there was actually a ship called the Star of the East. Interesting, right? And it would have been sailing around that time period. And it was a fishing vessel in that area with much of the descriptions that James had given. So there was some evidence that he ran into. He went to the local hospital. He started to look around. Well, I want to know, did someone come in with, hey, I was swallowed by a whale, folks. Let's take care of him. Were there any documents of this guy at the hospital with that name? They couldn't find any. He looked and looked and looked. Nothing surfaced. So he started, okay, wait, what's going on now? Well, I found the ship. Where's James? And so next, Bartley started to look at the Star of East and all their log and information. He could not actually find anywhere where Bartley was a crew member, let alone captain. You guys hear it? No one from the crew actually even remembered the incident. So he found some crew members and some crew members' children and wives, asked them, hey, were you there when this happened? They said that we were never on a boat that happened. We would remember that. So Bartley thought, wow, this is interesting. Finally, the wife of Captain Davis, the captain of the ship, the actual captain of the ship during that time, said, I was with my husband all those years. Never once was there a story of a man swallowed by a whale from his ship. This is a great yarn spinning. It was a great yarn spinning. They found out it actually never happened. James must have had some kind of interesting incident out in the ocean, but it didn't involve actually being swallowed by a whale or any of that. It was a story, and it took on a life of its own. There's also the story about the Gorleston whale. Basically, what happened is this whale washed up on the shore, and the community brought the whale into the middle of their town square. And what was interesting is as the whale sat and as they let the bones, basically they let the thing rot for a time, which is kind of gross to think about during that time period. But the bones eventually sat. And what was interesting is as the years went by, the story got bigger and bigger and bigger of the Gorleston whale. And before you knew it, there was a man who was in the whale at one point. The whale actually scooped up and attacked the man just off of shore. And for days and days, people were wrestling the whale until they finally pulled it up onto shore. Interesting, right? The reality is it was a dying whale that washed up on the shore. But the story grew and grew and grew, which is oftentimes what our stories do, aren't they? We tell a story, the story will grow. What makes you exaggerate in your story? Be honest, because every one of you do it.
More interesting, so let's just add more stuff.
Good. How many of you like telling stories? No. Oh, man, I love telling a story. Do you ever have that moment when you're telling a story and you start telling it and you see people lean in?
Yeah.
For a storyteller, you know what that does to us? We're like, I got them. They're leaning in. They want more. And so when they lean in, I start getting more dramatic. I start telling more jokes. I start adding a little more to the story. And Danielle will tell you, sometimes a story that I've told becomes like, whoop, and she's like, I was there. I don't remember that. I don't remember a gnome. I don't remember like whatever the thing is. I don't remember smoke and ashes. And maybe it wasn't quite in my mind.
Otherwise.
Well, yeah, unless you have a wife there that was there experiencing it. That's why some of my best stories are the ones where I'm alone. Stories build, they grow, and that's what stories do. And usually, though, there was a reason for the telling. You usually told the story because someone said something, and you brought the story forward because there was a need for it. and there was some kind of connection being made. And usually your story has some kind of connection. And if you are in ancient times, you sat around and you told stories, but you didn't just tell stories to tell stories typically. You told stories to share a deeper meaning. There's always a meaning connected with it. When a kid got in trouble, the wise elder of the town would not just beat them. That would happen too. But they would bring them aside and say, let me tell you a story. Half the time, the story was a larger story. Yeah, stories. And so, interestingly enough, there's a lot of stories about people being swallowed by whales. Are you surprised? The idea of people being swallowed by whales and the deeper connections and ideas of rebirth and all of that. If you were in Babylonian era, there was the sea goddess Directo. Directo, basically the whale of Der. And she basically swallows the sea and gave birth to Onus. Do you guys already see where some people jump to this? Onus, Jonas. That words actually mean the same thing. Yeah. So many people will jump to that and say, well, see, they just borrowed from another story. It was just a borrowed story. And in this story, of course, the Onus comes out and begins to share life with the rest of the world. And that's what will take place in that story. Many other stories. If you're Finnish, there's a story about this hero who, again, swallowed by a giant fish. And in the bottom of the fish, the fish takes him to the bottom of the sea. There he dies. It comes back up, and as the fish comes back up, life is given to the person anew. They're spit out, and they go on to save their world. And so there's a lot of these stories that are very old stories. And many people will immediately say, well, see, that story doesn't happen. That one's real, that one's fake. Let me ask you this. If you were a Babylonian, what would you say of the Hebrew story of Jonah? Fake. Fake. Not real. If you're a Hebrew, what would you say of the Babylonian tale? Fake. Which one's the fake?
Whichever one is not your story.
What'd you say? Both. Yeah, if it's not my story, yeah, very easy to jump. If it's not my story, it must not be the story, right? I like that. So just Gerald said, well, maybe both. Maybe both aren't really literally completely all true. Maybe there's something deeper behind it. Here's what you need to know. Either way, whichever side you fall on with this, whether literal or not, here's the thing. All of these tales during that time that they're told, all of them, the fish is a symbol for the womb. Think about that for a moment. The fish is the symbol for the womb. When a fish swallows the person and takes them down to Sheol, the word Sheol, hell, death, when it takes them down, what happens in the womb? Hopefully, with a healthy child. Grows. It shifts, it changes. And what happens when baby's ready? Birth and hospital bills. Yeah, birth, right? New life. Yeah, so the idea here in all of the stories, the connection to be made is that there's new life being told in the story. The story is going to center on how do we experience new life? What did it look like before there wasn't life? And what does it look like after there's life? How did that land for you guys so far? Anybody? Anyone right now just like, I don't know. Story of Jonah before we step right into it. 5th book of 12 different books called the Minor Prophets. Starts with this. I love this. It starts with the word wahi. Wahi was the word you would use when you started a story around a campfire. It happened on a day like this. Anybody with me? Historians don't start history like that. It happened on a rainy day like this. We were all in a room together. Right? Yeah. Once upon a time. That's how the story starts. So all of this are indications that there's actually something deeper we should be looking for. Epic language often will lack specific dates, specific names, times, the ethnicities of the sailors. All those things will not be included because it's an epic story. So, you ready to get into the story? We're not going to be asking questions about what worm ate the plant. Not interesting. We're not going to ask what kind of whale swallowed Jonah. Right? He's like, I'm done. I know I wanted that answered. How did Jonah live in a whale for 3 whole days? Not interesting. Because that's not the question. Those are not the questions they were asking. So why would we be interested in those? If you want to experience that, go find a whale. Let us know how that turns out for you. Please don't. So the word Jonah means dove or rebirth. So again, if you're going to start a story, you're not going to have the main person's name be Larry from accounting. Anyone with me? Again, it's got to be something that is epic, that fits with your story. So again, my hero is going to be named Rebirth. Yeah? Sweet. Interestingly enough, Danielle and I, when we were going through with our midwife, like the name for the vagina, we were told it's yoni, because that's a much better word, yoni. And what I found interesting about that is the word yoni was actually the word that Jonas, that's where Jonas came from, that word. Interesting. The word yoni used to be connected, Jonas used to be connected to the feminine sexuality, but it shifted after this story. Interesting. Come on, you just learned something really interesting. Yeah. So, all right, enough of that. Jonah. Here we go. Jonah. You have to remember, Jonah is always connected, is the metaphor for Israel. Israel is in exile. They were taken. They're captive. Now they're in Persia, according to this story, right? They're in the middle of Persian captivity. And the Persians are actually really good to them. Actually really good to them. As good as you can be to people you just conquered. Got it? And again, they kind of took over from Babylon. So the Persians, they're under Persian captivity, but they're actually treated pretty well. And the question is, how do we function as a group of people in the middle of this? We can't be fully ourselves. We can't be fully free. How do we relate to these people who are kind of considered our enemies, who don't believe the same as us? How do we interact with them? Jonah is the picture of Israel. Any questions on that? So far, so good? Are you enjoying this, by the way? I love this stuff. Okay, so here we go. Let's get right into it. The story goes like this. Chapter 1, verse 1. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Go to the great city of Nineveh. Preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. Here's what you should know about Nineveh. Nineveh was basically the largest city there for them. And guess what their main god was that they worshipped? The fish. The large fish. So Nineveh is going to be that center where, again, it's a very warlike city. They worship this fish god, again, Dakar, and he is supposed to preach against it. Now, for most of us hearing that, what do you think when you hear the phrase, preach against it? Preach. Preach against it.
Curse it.
What was that?
Curse it.
Curse it. Yeah, you idiots, right? You're doing all the wrong things. Curse it. Here's what this phrase actually means. The word means to prophesy. Now, if you were like me and you grew up in a culture where we were always trying to make geopolitical predictions about the future, that's not actually what prophesy meant. A prophet would do this. A prophet would give you messages of hope and challenge. What good would it do if someone came in here and were like, all right, in 2 lifespans from now, 2 generations, this is what's going to happen. And then they ended. They're like, have a good day. You would walk away and you'd say, okay, I guess I can kind of prepare, but how do I live now? Would that be a message that would be helpful for me right now? No, because the word prophesy meant to give hope and challenge to people right here, right now. So here's the thing. It's a message of challenge and hope. How many of you have friends that are just brutally honest with you? Anybody? Yeah. Good friends, they will call you out on your stuff, won't they? They'll say, dude, you're doing this thing. It's probably not the smartest thing. And then they'll give you some hope, though, won't they? They won't just say, hey, you're an idiot. Peace. See you next week for coffee. Not going to be like the most life-giving conversation. They will call you out on your stuff. They'll lovingly do it. And then they'll say, but here's the thing, like I've been through it too, and here's some hope, and we're going to do this. We're going to get through it. And you feel connected. That's what a prophet would do. Messages of hope, but also there's some challenge, right? If we don't turn this ship around soon, things are not going to go well for us, right? And so Jonah, it says, ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for that port. After paying the fee, he went aboard and sailed for Tarshish to flee from the Lord. Do you notice there's like a constant down, down, down? Like that's purposeful here. He goes down here. He goes down here. He's going to get into a sailboat, and he's going to go where? Down, down, until he's down at the very bottom of the ocean in the depths of Sheol. Do you guys see it? Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea. Again, down. Such a violent storm arose, and the ship threatened to break up. All the sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his own God. And they threw the cargo into the sea to lighten the ship. But Jonah had gone where? Below deck, where he lay down and fell asleep in a deep sleep. Have you heard this story before? Ever wonder, like, with the story of Jonah or Jesus, like, most of us, that would not be the thing we would do, is it? Yeah, we don't, in the middle of a storm, be like, meh, I'm going to take a nap. Oh, I'm in the middle of all of this crazy chaos. Things are going really poorly for me. I'm about to lose my house, whatever the thing is. I think I'll just take a nap. Depression could take you there, but this isn't about depression. Why would they just keep... The idea here is that they go below because a resurrection is about to take place. I feel like no one got that but me. Like a resurrection, new life is about to take place. I did hear some ahs over here. Yeah, you go below, right? And so again, when you make these connections, he's fleeing, he's severing relationship. Many people will say anti-prophet, but the reality is he is going below. There's things that are going to be changing and shifting for Jonah. And Israel, here's the thing about Israel. They're captives. And in the middle of their captivity, they have a choice. We can either help this nation prosper, we can be a part of it, we can help it grow, we can bring the good things that we have to it, or we can hold the grudge. We can be angry. How many of you love holding grudges? How many of you know people that do hold grudges? That's painful. But I love this quote. Holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And here's what I hope you catch about Israel. Israel is drinking poison, and they're waiting for their Persian captors to die. They're waiting. I've had moments where I have been the person who's like, that person, they just keep making the wrong decisions, and, karma's going to catch up to them. It's going to catch them. And deep down, though, it's not an innocent thing for me. And maybe all of you are much better humans than me. Like, I'm going to put that out there. But for me, when I say that, I'm actually saying this. I kind of hope you get swallowed by a whale. Like, I kind of hope that the very worst happens to you so that I can come back to you and be like, so how'd that go? And those people will come to you and ask, so how are we doing? In the very worst possible moment. That's Israel's choice right now. Do we continue sitting in this place where we're just waiting for this empire to fall? Or do we choose to live fully in the middle of captivity, bringing life wherever we are? Interesting, right? That's the choice, because they have the decision, vengeance over mercy. How many of you love to be right? Have you ever been right and acted really wrong? I have to be right instead of finding repair. It's more important to me that I get the last word on my Facebook feed, right? And I love that you're laughing because you probably saw my last one. It's more important that I'm right than I find repair. It's more important that I get even, right? My daughter right now is not in this room. But she's struggling, and Danielle and I were trying to figure out what to do. Because my daughter, when she gets hit by her brother, guess what she needs to happen for her to move on? I need him to be hit too. And so what she will do is she'll take it upon herself, thank goodness, to hit her brother. And as parents, we're trying to figure out, like, how do we talk about that with her, that you don't have to get even to be able to find repair and move on. But here's the thing, all of us do it to some degree, don't we? Like, we all find ways to get even, to get the last word, to hurt others, to make sure they feel a little bit of pain like we're feeling. Because if they don't, well, they're just going to keep walking all over us. So what do we do? How do we respond? Beg for wrath, right? We will do this sometimes. I just hope they get what they deserve. And this is what Israel is doing. They're saying God is going to punish them severely, right? He's going to punish them. He's going to send his wrath down and just totally demolish them. When the truth is, these are human beings too. You're in the middle of captivity. They were a more powerful nation than you. They were actually a more powerful nation than the nation that took you over in the first place. What will you do? Will you just keep praying for their wrath as they're actually helping feed you? Interesting, right? What do you do? So it says, because Jonah chooses not to experience that, to not allow love, grace, those kind of things, ideas Jesus seems to talk about often. Because I'm not going to allow those things to navigate my life, but I'm going to allow anger, wrath, my own justice to be the thing. I experience pain and brokenness, and I continue going down, 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 down. And sooner or later, the poison does what? Just destroys you. I heard the other day some news, and I was shocked. But then I sat with it, and I actually celebrated it a little bit. I heard that a group of people who were kind of mean to me, I heard that they were actually doing okay. And I remember hearing it. I'm like, they can't be doing okay. Those sons of a guns, how can they? They can't be doing okay. I just said sons of a guns. That's hilarious. That's worse than saying the other one. But I remember thinking that, how could that be? Good can't fall on bad people. And they're bad people. Truth is, they're not bad people. They just sometimes make bad decisions like you and me. So I started to weigh through all this, and I began to realize, oh yeah, that's good too. And I hated myself for a moment, and then I celebrated. But that's what Israel is beginning to feel when we don't learn to be alive and fully present there in the middle of captivity, when we can't celebrate even when our enemies are succeeding and having life, when we can't allow ourselves to be present to the party, we actually begin to drink our own poison. And we can't celebrate. And so the story of Jonah, he is vomited, right? How that happens, all of that, I don't know. For me, I find it to be more metaphorical than literal, but maybe it's literal for you, I don't know. But the story goes, he is vomited out of the whale's mouth. And again, how many days did it take? 3. In Hebraic culture, and actually many, many cultures, Babylon, Egypt, 3 days was an interesting metaphor for something that I hope you're catching. It's a metaphor for when someone dies, or when someone is experiencing pain, brokenness. 3 days is the time in which they experience a transformation that moves them to the 3rd day, where there is resurrection and new life. Cool? Yeah, pretty beautiful. 3 days is when on the 3rd day, there's new life. What do you think about that? Kind of cool. The 3rd day. It brings, for me, there's so much beauty to that. Resurrected, new life, comes out of death into new life. He goes to Nineveh. He gets there, and he's pretty sure his story, his message, is going to fall on deaf ears, right? They're not going to hear me. But what happens? They hear him. What do these fools do? They're like, well, that's good advice. Okay. Now, again, historically, we know Nineveh did not follow that kind of advice. I'm just saying. Nineveh does not drastically change, but there are interesting, subtle changes in their politics you can find historically. Kind of cool. But either way, he shares messages of hope and challenge, and they are accepted. But here's the thing about Jonah and Israel and you and me, is that he goes up on the cliff and he waits for it to burn. You just gave a good message of hope, promise, challenge. You sat down with a person at coffee. You said, dude, if you don't start changing habits or certain things, this whole thing, you're right, man. I'm going to do it. You had the conversation, but now you're at home and you're like, all right, and you're looking on Facebook. Let's see this thing explode. I know this person. They're not. Let's watch. It's like watching a TV show. It's drama. So Israel is sitting there watching and waiting for the thing to fall apart. They have this moment where there's this vine that covers their shadow, and then all of a sudden he enjoys it, but then it's gone, right? All these moments of saying there is blessing and then there's brokenness. There's good and there's bad, and it just happens. But what happens when we're simply sitting, watching, waiting for the worst? Anyone with me? Not rhetorical. What happens when you're just sitting, waiting for that person to just like absolutely wreck their lives?
Wasting your time.
Okay, good. What good does that do for you? Nothing. Who are you?
Doesn't happen.
Okay, yeah, sometimes it doesn't actually happen. In fact, sitting there angrily waiting and waiting, you now have taken passenger seat in your own life. And then if they begin to actually thrive, oh crap. All of my energy of like hate being thrown at them, it actually didn't do a bloody thing. It just wasted more of my own energy. And so the story, the message of Israel is a really heavy one. And I don't know if you've heard Jonah this way, but for Israel, this is why this is one of the greatest stories they had. Because for them, it was a message saying, what are you going to do? Are you going to just wait? You going to sit there? You be angry? How do we experience freedom in the middle of injustice, exile, brokenness? Do we sit? Do we wait? The answer for them was pretty simple. It was we have to, and again, it's a simple message, but it's the most difficult one to actually follow. The message was we learn to love our enemies, wish them well. Does that mean I have to like agree with everything they're doing? Does it mean that I have to participate with them in what they're doing? No. Does it mean I have to have coffee with them every single day and like, no. But it does mean I have to find ways to love them and wish them well. And when you really love someone, you treat them differently, don't you? It's very easy to like say I love you and then like treat you horribly. Or to talk about you. I love you. You're so great. And then I'm like, this guy's a freaking nutcase. Well, that's not helpful either. Love your enemies, wish them well. That was the message of Jonah. And so I find this so fascinating. One of the verses that was often used during that era by many, many prophets and many different religious leaders was this one. And it was often in regard to how do we interact with our enemies? How do we interact with Persia? How do we interact with Babylon, with Greece, with Rome? How do we interact with them? And this was one of them that they would often use. They would say this: blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers. So notice this, there's like a progression. When I'm walking with someone, I can walk with you, but what can I eventually do at some point in time? I can walk away. But once I stop walking and I'm standing with you, what happens? We're walking, but then we stop, and now we're just standing. I've chosen to like take root, right? Like now the conversation got real. Ever have that moment? You're walking with someone, they just stop and they look at you. You think, what did I say? Or maybe it just hit home really hard and now they're looking at you. Yeah, we're standing now. And then what happens when we sit? Ever have someone at your house, you're trying to get them to leave, and they're just like, I could be here for hours. By the way, I love you all. That's not any of you. And it's like, sit. And you're like, but it's like midnight, and I'm kind of tired. Oh, I'm good, man. You guys do your thing. I'll be here. You sit. You take root now. You're even deeply planted. And so the ancients said, for the wicked, we don't walk. We don't stand. We don't sit. We put them at a distance, right? But here's something really fascinating that I find. I find the life and teachings of Jesus really compelling. And I want to share with you what he does. I think it's really interesting. Jesus walks with people who are considered sinners. He walks with them. And even though sometimes he took moments where his path kind of diverted from theirs, he walked with them, right? As much as they would allow it. And then he stood with them. I find that fascinating. The woman with the issue of blood was not allowed to be in that community, anywhere near that community in the city. And yet she found her way there. And what does Jesus do? He stands with her, takes root. And then the biggest thing you could do to say, I am one with you, is to eat with someone, to break bread. And I find it really fascinating and beautiful. Jesus says, I'm not just going to walk with you. I'm not just going to stand with you. I'm going to be one with you. And for the message of Jonah, the message of Israel, was that you cannot fully be a part of something when you're on the outskirts just looking judgmentally in. The only way to create change, to bring connection, to have conversation, is to be in the thing. You can be in it, but not of it. Do you guys remember that verse? You can be in it, but not of it. I can be in your drama, but it's not my drama, unless I make it my drama, right? I can be in it, but not of it. I can walk with you. I can support you. I can stand with you. I can be one with you. And so the words of Jesus to large empires in the middle of brokenness is we lean in. We lean in. We find ways to bring life to every relationship we're in. We try to find ways to bring life even to our enemies. What do you think of that? Anyone feeling like that right now? I want to end with a story, and then Brett's going to share some music. One of my friends, Jamie, he was telling me that their son, he had a birthday party, and they invited all their friends and all of his friends. And so Jamie watches as his son has all of his friends there at this big birthday party, and the kids are playing, and Jamie's son, he gets into it with this other kid, and they're just like, just exchanging blows. And Jamie's son goes up to Janelle, his wife, and says, Mommy, I want him out of here. He has to leave my party. He's disinvited. And Janelle said, sorry, sweetie. He's our friend. He stays. Well, then I'm not. And her son walks into his room and slams the door. And Janelle said, at that moment, I had a decision. I could ask his friend, who he's probably going to be, he's going to get over this fight in a matter of minutes. Who knows? But I could disinvite them, potentially break up a relationship. It could get weird. Or I could allow my son a really teachable moment. So she said what she did is she allowed her son to stay in his room. He stayed in his room for the entire party. His own party. She said what they did is they had cake. She said for the birthday song, they still sang to him as loud as they could, make sure he could hear it. They sang the songs. She said when they all had the presents, she said, hey kids, open them. Let's see what my son got for his birthday party. They opened the presents. They continued playing in the bouncy house, and they had fun. She said, I was not going to allow my son to ruin the celebration. He can ruin it for himself. And so it reminds me of the parable that Jesus taught, this prodigal son moment. And what's interesting about this moment, the prodigal son moment, is that everyone's celebrating the son come home, except for one. It's the eldest. And so he sits in the middle of the celebration, and he chooses not to participate. If you want to know what hell looks like, I can tell you it's this. It's sitting at the party and not participating. It's being at the party, being at the celebration, and doing this. They don't deserve it. Because here's the thing, the party is going to happen with or without you. You are not that special. I'm just saying. You think you are, you're not. We love you, but you're not that special. We're still going to have the party. The party is going to happen with or without you. The choice is yours. Do you want to participate or not? Participating means we find ways to lift one another up. We find ways to sing the silly songs. We find ways to love one another even in the midst of brokenness. We find ways to forgive and move and grow. For some of us, something needs to happen before we can do it. For some of us, there needs to be a death to certain things before we can rise and be spit out of the whale into the party. Am I right? I'm going to give you time later to consider some of those things. But for now, I just want you to consider this. What's keeping you from leaning in, from being totally free, from being a part of the party? What are some of the things right now that you feel like my anger, my need for justice, whatever the thing is? Think about what is the thing that's keeping me from really being free? I had a lot of time this week to consider that when I heard this former group I was with is growing. I was like, fantastic. But I can tell you, I actually really feel free this morning because I'm answering that question. So answer that question, and after the next couple songs, after Kim comes up in the next couple songs, I'm going to do a little thing with you. If in the middle of that, though, I want you to make sure you have a boat. You're going to need a boat. And if you don't have a boat, there's some paper here, and you can try to figure out how to make a boat while the songs are going. Yeah? Or you can ask Donovan to make you a boat. Either way, Kim's going to come on up and share some things with you, and then we're going to have some more music, and we're going to talk about boats in a few minutes.
Thank you, Tony, for always challenging us to think and to grow and to see it different. Appreciate that. Tony talked about participating. And this morning, I know it's always so much fun when people ask you to give money. It's like, really? I give money over here, I give money over there, or maybe I don't want to give any. But whatever this morning, whatever is going on in your mind, I just invite you to participate with us and to keep going what we have here. It's a beautiful community. We love the people that are here. We love what Pastor Tony does for us, Teacher Tony does for us, sorry. Whatever we want to call him, Rabbi, Sensei, yeah, there we go. I like that. But this morning, join us in giving to Ethos. And thank you for all you do all the time.
Welcome to the planet. Welcome to existence. Everyone's here. Everyone's here. Everybody's watching you now. Everybody waits for you now. What happens next? What happens next? I dare you to move. I dare you to move. I dare you to lift yourself up off the floor. I dare you to move. I dare you to move like today never happened. Today never happened before. Welcome to the fallout. Welcome to resistance. The tension is here. The tension is here. Between who you are and who you could be. Between how it is and how it should be. Yeah, I dare you to move. I dare you to move. I dare you to lift yourself up off the floor. I dare you to move. I dare you to move like today never happened. Today never happened. Maybe redemption has stories to tell. And maybe forgiveness is right where you fell. Where can you run to escape from yourself? Where you gonna go? Where you gonna go? Said where you gonna go? Where you gonna go? Salvation is I dare you to move. I dare you to lift yourself up off the floor. I dare you to move. I dare you to move like today never happened. Today never happened. Today never happened. Today never happened before. Amen, amen. Is anybody else here done pretending? Yes? We got a song. This is a throwback. I hope you remember, I hope you're reminded that you are valuable and that you are loved and that you are a brilliant human being exactly how you are and that you're growing and that you're becoming, but in the midst of it, please, please, please feel free to love yourself. This one's called I Don't Want to Be. I don't need to be anything other than a prison guard son. I don't need to be anything other than a specialist son. I don't have to be anyone other than the birth of two souls in one. Part of where I'm going is knowing where I'm coming from. I don't want to be anything other than what I've been trying to be lately. And all I have to do is think of me and my peace of mind. I'm tired of looking around rooms wondering what I gotta do or who I'm supposed to be, 'cause I don't want to be anything other than me. I'm surrounded by liars everywhere I turn. I'm surrounded by imposters everywhere I turn. I'm surrounded by identity crisis everywhere I turn. Am I the only one to notice? I can't be the only one concerned. And I don't want to be anything other than I've been trying to be lately. And all I had to do is think of me, and I'll have peace of mind. I'm tired of looking around rooms wondering what I gotta do or who I'm supposed to be, 'cause I don't want to be anything other than me. Sing it again for Ethos, let's go. And I don't want to be anything other than what I've been trying to be lately. And all I had to do is think of me, and I'll have peace of mind. I'm tired of looking around rooms wondering what I gotta do or who I'm supposed to be, 'cause I don't want to be anyone other than me. Amen.
Where you were like, I remember that song. I'd like you to take your boat out. Take your baby boat. So, what I want you to do is you have a boat, right? And I love the story of Jonah for so many reasons, but as I've grown and I've understood the story more and more, this story, does anyone need a boat, by the way? We have extras. Pam brought some. Raise your hand if you need another boat. We need more boats? Perfect. All right. Thank you, Pam. You're on it. Awesome. So, tell me what to do. I'm going to make my boat. Here's something I really find interesting is whenever I taught literature and religion in classes, I found that if I can get something in a kid's hand, typically there's something that happens, teachers, that when you get something in someone's hand, there's something tangible that takes place. And so what I want you to do, you have this boat, and this is your boat. This is your boat. You have been sailing. Let's put ourselves on that ocean. You've been sailing this ocean that you've been in. And here's the thing. On your journey with this boat, you have had certain people on the boat. You've kicked certain people off the boat, right? So you've had certain traveling companions join you. Periodically, they'll hop back on their own boat. But here's the thing. The boat is your boat. It's no one else's boat. And you have been adding certain things to the boat. And I don't know what it is you've been adding to the boat. But for many of us right now, that boat is not sailing very well, is it? And for some of us, we've added certain things inside of that boat, and it's kind of weighed us down a bit. Whether that's been jealousy, anger, sadness, whatever the thing is, the boat hasn't been floating quite like it was made to, has it? And so what I want you to do right now is I just want you to close your eyes, hold that boat in your hand, and I just want you to consider for a minute, what are some of the things right now that have been causing your boat, your own life journey, to not move as well, to not sail as free? What is it that's caused you to not be fully part of the party? Because those are the things that you've placed inside of the boat. You've allowed those things to cause your boat to become a bit stagnant, to not sail as free as it was made to. So again, consider those things right now, whatever those things have been. Those are the things holding you back in your journey. Those things you've put in the boat. And so right now I want you to imagine you're sailing. You're sailing. Maybe your ship actually has stopped sailing. It's just sitting there. There's no wind. There's nothing. I want you to look around the boat, and I want you to see those things that just kind of popped up in your mind. And I want you to right now imagine that you are taking those things, and one by one, you are throwing them overboard. You're just tossing them overboard. You don't need them. They are keeping you from your journey. And here's the thing, as you are throwing those things slowly overboard, I want you to picture that a gentle wind is beginning to form. You're feeling it. As you throw more over, you're beginning to feel that wind pick up, aren't you? And so the wind is beginning to pick up, and now the only thing to do is to put up the sail. So I want you to imagine you're beginning to put that sail up. You're pulling that sail higher and higher until it gets to the very top. And now you can do the fun thing that you were made to do. You can begin to sail free. You can begin to be happy in your journey. And what we just described right there is called rebirth. You were made to sail. You were made to be free. And so allow those things to go overboard so that you might sail free. Brett's going to sing a song right now about sailboats. And I want you just to hold your boat, read some of the lyrics, and just enjoy this last song together.
I feel just like a sailboat. I don't know where I'm headed, but you can't make the wind blow from a sailboat. I have seen the sun, felt the rain on my skin. I've been lost and found, but mostly I've been waiting. Oh, I'm out in the waves and I'm hoping and praying, please let this wind blow me home. And night after night there's an empty horizon. My God, do I feel so alone. And sometimes life, and most times I feel just like a sailboat. And I'm pretty sure I'm hurt. At least I know I'm speaking. But I feel like a fool, 'cause I can't hear you listening. But I'm not giving up, and I'm gonna move on forward. And I'm gonna raise my flag, and God knows what I'm headed towards. Oh, I'm out in the waves and I'm hoping and praying, please let this wind blow me home. And night after night there's an empty horizon. My God, do I feel so alone. And sometimes life, and most times I feel just like a sailboat. The only change I see The lost are found at sea. The only difference is believing I can make it in. Ooh. Oh, I'm out in the waves and I'm hoping and praying, please let this wind blow me home. And night after night there's an empty horizon. My God, do I feel so alone. Sometimes life, and most times I feel just like a sailboat.
I do feel like a sailboat. I don't know about you guys. Life is a sea of challenges and joys and struggles. Close your eyes with me for just a minute. God, we're on our sailboats. And we don't always know what's going to come on the seas. But we ask that you would continue guiding our little sailboats, riding on the boat with us. Help us to continue, Lord, to see those things that are holding us back from lifting our sail and being free. We ask that we could continue throwing those things off, seeing what they are, and getting rid of the weights that might be holding our boats back from sailing. Amen.
So thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. Next week, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to try something a little new, and we're also going to open up another question and answer time, which was a lot of fun last time, mainly over the Epic series that we've been doing. But I wanted to also share with you, we're going to, after this next week, we're going to start a new series, and we're going to try something very different. I hope you love it. But it's, how many of you have ever studied the book of Revelation and you thought, this is one weird deal? How many of you have ever been to a bunch of seminars where you thought, like, I don't ever want to hear another one of those again? Like the beach seminars and those kind of things. What I plan to do with this is I want to show you this book. That book was actually a really politically charged book. It was a book of how to learn how to be fully human again in the middle of a bunch of brokenness, even when you disagree with certain things going on in the world around you. How do you live fully Christ-like? How do you become lamb-like rather than beast-like? Those are the concepts I'm going to share with you. I will not be making geopolitical predictions about the future. Many other people have already done that. So I'm going to share a lot of beauty to it and a lot of interesting stuff that I think you might enjoy. It will be the, I call this with all of my friends, the anti-beast seminars. But all joking aside, I want to show you in that book, it's actually really, really beautiful when you understand historically what was going on and the deeper meaning behind all of it. And so again, I'm not going to be telling you geopolitical predictions. I'm not going to ask you to bring decoder rings, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to share with you a lot of beauty that I found in the book. So the next couple of weeks, just be prepped for that. I think you'll really enjoy it. We may not all agree on how we landed with the book and everything, but it's going to open up a lot of fun discussion, and we're actually going to open up a lot more discussion during that series. Cool? Cool. All right, awesome. Take care, everyone. Make sure you give everybody hugs around you, and go out to eat with different people. And yeah, awesome.